Chapter 1 The Sepulchre Forest. The Battle of Camlan had ended, and Sir Melihan searched for the corpse of his father. He knew that Mordred had died. He knew that Arthur had won, and had been taken away by Sir Bedivere, Sir Lucan, and another he could not see the face or shield. Arthur bore a hideous wound on his head, splitting his face, and he lost blood without measure. How could a man, even one like King Arthur, live long after that? Driven by intuition, Sir Melihan picked through the corpses. He was a young man, barely made a knight by King Arthur before he mustered his armies against Lancelot. Sir Melihan wept to see the devastation and broken men strewn about his feet like the leaves at autumn. The battle had begun at a field, but soon as knights sought each other and jousted, they had been drawn into the surrounding forest. The trees here were full grown ere the Romans ever arrived. Legends spake that the first seedlings were planted when Brutus came to England from Troy and, looking to the future, sought to build houses and center beams for roofs. This was before he conquered the giants and made them work in stone for him. Then he killed the giants when they betrayed him, or so the legends say. More trees after were planted over the gigantic corpses, making a plain a hilly expanse. The trees grew close on the rich corpses and interknit their branches so that they made halls and cloisters of green, and a cool wind blew through them. The sun dappled the ground with that green, so that the faces of the dead were mottled like shrouds had been laid over them by pagan Demeter. If no one came for the dead, they would fill the natural cathedral with voices and spirits, and so become a catacomb. Yes, here were the corpses of giants. He had been brought up in the court of Arthur's round table. Here, old Griflet, who had taught him jousting. He had been among the first of Arthur's knights, and now he was a cold corpse among the others. Sir Melihan had seen dead men before. Most of the dead around Sir Griflet were no more than footmen or squires. Who were they to Melihan when there were kith and kin littered among them? The young man grimaced whenever he saw a banner he recognized, torn and stomped to the bloody mud. He found the body of Sir Tor, half buried in dead knights. Of few words, Sir Tor had taken him on an adventure once. Did he speak to him of chivalry? Did he boast of his deeds, and of the maidens who went with him? No, not one word. In the same way that flowers display their beauty without words, so did Tor demonstrate his chivalry with strength of arms and a worshipful life. Now Sir Ironsides lay dead at Melihan's feet. Out of Sir Ironsides' red-plated chest a lance sprung, growing like a tree. The spear had been decorated, and the banners and ribbons lay over him like roots and vines. The streamers at the handle blew in the breeze like leaves. His mouth was wrought in a grimace, and his scarlet hair hid the rest of his face, so the blood and hair mingled. Sir Melihan saw others, the Ywain brothers, one legitimate, the other a bastard, propping each other up back to back. Sir Morian's blood spread out like a pool under his body and fell out of the cuts of his armor like little waterfalls. Sir Cador's open-eyed head lay on a trunk, but no body lay collapsed nearby. Sir Melihan feared that the eyes followed him, as he picked through the dead. Calogrenant slumped against a tree, his head caught on a branch's stump. There were more, the dead repeating and falling away beyond sight. Melihan had been set to rule Camelot and manage things while Mordred was away in battle. His father had doubted nothing. He told his son that victory was assured. Melihan swooned, overwhelmed. The smell, the dead, too much. It was like a forester returning home after a journey and finding only ashes where his forest used to be. Chapter 2. Mordred, the Puppet. Sir Melihan's father was never the greatest of knights, but something about him shone that day. Life flowed out of him to his men and the kings that gave him worship. He had seen King Arthur do the same at feast, joust, and play. Mordred stood tall in his black lacquered armor, his helm decorated with bat wings and dragons held close by a squire. Clarent, his red-bladed sword, glowed in his hand as he dubbed squire after squire, making them knights in his service. At every touch the blade glowed. Mordred told them that it was a trick of the blade, and that it proved the squire's true worth as a knight. Melihan did not think so. Clarent had been a gift from the witch horde of his grandmother, Mordred's mother, and had an evil history. Mordred's gray eyes glowed in the light each time, turning blinding white for the flash. I dub thee, again and again. Each time his cloak flared, though from the motion of the arm to dub or the flash of light, no one could say. It was the image of royal vitality. The silver and gold circlet that crossed Mordred's pale forehead glinted merrily in the firelight and stained glass windows. His mouth and eyes smiled for each young man. He clapped their shoulder and gripped their hand. He told each one of the worship and fire he saw in them. The young men promised miracles and mightier feats of strength than ever Lancelot performed. It was enough to make the heart sing. Mordred, King Mordred, took his son aside and spoke privately. My son, I go to meet Arthur at Camlin. We will parley, but I know that he will start this fight. That war and battle is inevitable. Mordred's teeth were well formed, but his canids stuck out like all the Orkney brothers, such as were left, and it gave him a wolfish look. His black hair was tied back in a ponytail, and as he spoke to his son, he thoughtlessly threw away the crown so it landed on a dresser. The armor he wore was ceremonial, but now he put on his true war armor. Bat wings flared from the back of his shoulders. On his shield was painted a pair of dragons, red and white, circling a depiction of red-bladed Clarent. At the hilt, held up by dragons, was the crown of Logris. The background was black. Sir Melihan admired his father. Muscles and sinews stood out like cords. His sword arm lightly pulled on mail and hauberk with the assistance of his squires. His left arm pulled tight the cunningly wrought clips that bound his armor together. At his chest, there was a black sapphire glass that winked in the light. I know, my son, that you wish to go with us, but I need you to stay here. I am taking everyone, and while you are a knight fair and true, one more night will not break the battle for Arthur or my side. I have seen the signs. I know what Guinevere prophesies from her abbey. Rather, come to me after the battle. Find me, and I will give you instructions then. To the squires, he said, leave us. I will come to the army when I am done instructing my son. The squires bowed and left. Father, You have the best knights of the kingdom with you. All of Arthur's enemies flock to you. Why give heed to Guinevere's words? She is a jilted lover. When you graciously offered your protection, I demanded she marry me to legitimize myself. Don't deceive yourself, my son. This is about ruling. Power. Did you accept the lies? I taught you poorly. I'm sorry. He clasped Melihan's shoulder. Do not worry. I will teach you after the battle. I will survive, but I will need you to come to me on the battlefield whether or not I achieve victory. I must rule. I must be free. Melihan struggled but clasped his father's hand in return. I am only a new knight, barely 18 years old. Yet I will trust your wisdom and advice. When you return, I will learn from you how to be a knight and a prince. The two of them walked out into the halls of Camelot. All were called to the front of the gates. Mordred spoke to Melihan. He said it with feverish urgency, and his son knew that this was the most important thing Mordred ever said to him. We are bound by oaths like chains and ropes. They tie us down, make prisoners of life. In some that is good, to keep the thief from the poor family, or the knight from the damsel's life. But in others it is bad. It keeps good men from acting. It keeps us from our desires. Mordred clasped Melihan's shoulder. And I desire to be free, to have no oaths holding me down. Do you understand? If we are free men, then we must act like free men. We cannot be bound. We will be free. Melihan watched his father raise his hands in triumph as the two of them walk into the open sun to the cheers of the crowd assembled. Mordred gave a speech. Kings and dukes gave their own speeches. The men roared with approval. Above all, clouds covered the sun and vultures circled. As they marched, ravens and crows cawed with the time of the marchers. It was noon, but darkness covered all the land of England. Chapter 3. No Dream Left in Britain. The moon rose before Melihan found his father. The signs of battle broke any track of the push and pull. How could he find the traces of command? There was no way to find the center. There was death at every hand, at every turn, at every root. A fresh corpse grinned at Melihan. Jesus, preserve me! Melihan cried. He was near where he had seen Arthur carted away. Jesus wept, Mordred whispered. Melihan jumped. His heart beat so hard he feared to die of it. Father, I am hidden among the corpses. Search for the glow of Clarent. Until now I was in a swoon. Until I heard your weeping. It brought me forth from the darkness. Thank God you love me. Now that the darkness had fallen, he could see a red glow under the body of a squire. He threw the corpse from his father's body. He cried out in agony. Mordred had been almost split in half from side to side. A hole big enough for Melihan to squeeze through stared at him. He could see the organs and broken spine, yet life burned in Mordred's eyes. Clarent glowed in his hand with a low burning fire. Melihan caught it with his side eye, and the fire became tongues lapping at the red blood spattered on the sword. The mouth whispered. The lungs did not expand, the lower third being cut open by the unspeakable wound. The secret power of Clarent is in the power of life. It flows into me and keeps me alive. I took a small portion from each knight when I dubbed them. Nothing more than a morsel, perhaps a month or a year from their natural life. What did it cost them? They are all perished around us. What can I do? Melihan collapsed, cradling his father's head. As long as I hold it, and the life is there, I will live. It will not last forever. I have used it before, when my neck was broken, or during the fight with Sir Lamorak, who killed my mother through Agravain, your uncle. I healed, but the wounds were not so great. Claret enhances the healing, provided I can heal naturally. Some scars never disappeared. I had some means to heal even this, but the witch repented of her power, and so is lost to me. The two did not speak. Sir Mordred broke the silence. There is a chapel, not far from here along the sea. Take me there. I may be saved there if God wills it, or else some other power grants mercy. Why would you want any other's mercy? Mordred did not answer his son. With greatest care, Melihan took up his father and walked to the chapel. The forest murmured with life. Lights and orbs floated over the corpses. Some floated up, others lingered for a time. Whispers of things Melihan knew that he should not look at darted out of sight. Some humped things wearing monks' robes walked out of a cave set in the roots of a tree. They searched the multitude of the dead until they found a knight, one of King Arthur's men, and gently picked him up from the ground onto their shoulders. When his sword fell from his hands, one of them picked it up with his shield. Melihan recognized the symbol embossed on that shield. It was Sir Pelleas, the husband of Nimue. Though the knight had no love for Gawain, he had loved Arthur more than any hatred. Melihan risked speaking. Sir, grant mercy, and leave his Christian body for the priests to bury. In Jesus' name, do not despoil the noble dead. One of the pallbearers stopped and said, Sir, do not become overwrought by your grief. It's God's work we do. Arthur is not dead. When he returns, he will need his loyal knights with him. But they are cold and lifeless. Do you have some way of defeating death himself? The lumpy face of the pallbearer twisted, but it was not a twist of anger, but of joy, though Melihan could see no mouth. Death has been conquered these 600 years, sir. Do not think death is greater than the servants of him who conquered death. And so saying, the lumpy thing, no taller than a child, bowed and returned to his burden. Arthur, alive! But I saw the wound on his head and chest. Mordred gripped his son's shoulder as Melihan spoke. Speak no more of it. And so they walked in silence to the chapel. There was a hermit, the only one brave enough to stay so close to the battle site, who let them in and made them beds to sleep in. Mordred's wounds were enough to shock the holy man into fainting, but when he revived, he ran for his medicines and tinctures. I don't know if that will help you. It will ease the pain, Mordred whispered. He was louder than a whisper should allow, but Melihan saw his body strain. How long do you have? Days, maybe a week. Claret devours the stored life faster when I am as sore wounded as this. Melihan comforted his father as he could, then left to see the hermit. He saw the man on a hill. He joined him and spoke to him. Sir, what do you see? The hermit pointed out to the sea. A boat moved without rowers from the shore. Even from this distance, the body of Arthur was recognizable. He lay on a bower, and 3 queenly women mourned over him. A single knight wept openly, knees on the sand and clutching his face. There was no sign of any other. Sir Melihan watched the boat disappear into the night. Where does the barge sail to? Sir, but it does sail to mist-shrouded Avalon. Morgana has taken his body with 2 other queens, and they take him to Avalon to be healed in its timeless shores. When he is healed, he will be brought to a hidden place under the earth. Grant mercy. If they could heal the death wounds of Arthur, They would have not taken your father, sir. I know who you are and your deeds. I am bound by God to be peaceable to all men. But do not mistake my kindness for anything other than God's good grace manifest on this earth. Come, let us make your father comfortable as we can. What chapel is this? Sir, this is the blessed chapel of Saint Benedict, patron saint against witchcraft. This is where Morgana gave up her evil magic. I saw it fly from her like a swarm of black gems out of the windows. How she wept to be free of it. How she wept she no longer had it. Sin grasps heart, Melahan, and Jesus Christ lets us wrestle that sin for His glory. Let us serve Him together by ministering to your Father in His last moments. That He lives so long with so much of Him missing. Will cannot last a man to eternity. Surely, God means for him to repent of his sin. What sin, sir? Treason. Chapter 4. Air and Darkness. Mordred's hand never left the hilt of his sword, and the blood trickled out of him continuously. His heart beat with strength, and his eyes glowed even without light. The hermit spoke with him, but Mordred would not answer. Only when Melahan told him where they were did he give some expression of life. What if... I need no what-ifs. Give me what is. Melahan did not sleep for 6 days for worry and sorrow. He saw his father grow monstrous. His bones and flesh grew out of the bed, so his head rested at the altar and his feet at the door. And then he grew still taller, until his head was pressed up against the altar and propped on the wall behind it, and his toes rested on the ceiling. His black hair covered the floor. Only Clarent remained the same size. As the giant body grew, it was absorbed into the flesh. Out of the hole in his father's body, a hand reached out. The blood had pooled, and the hands pulsed with the life-blood, the color of pink and red, so life-full that it could not be dyed into dead matter. A head rose above the lip of flesh. It formed into the face of his father. It spoke. Come, and give yourself to your father. A year will buy him a day. Keep him alive. It is your duty as a son. I would not give my life for my father, but only if there was hope of life. There is nothing, no chivalry, no love in burning yourself uselessly. He is doomed to die. I see that you are the voice of Clarent. Do not think I am deceived by you. When he perishes, and the life is drained out of you, I will take you to a smith to be destroyed. You will be melted into dross. I will cast out the bar of metal that remains of you into the sea. Surely you will kill the fish therein, but no man will give his life to you forevermore. Even if you were to do that, what I am would not diminish, and someday I will be found and remade. I drink deep of Arthur's lifeblood, and that connection is still there for me to drink, but even that wanes as they heal him. Will ya not? Not even for one day. Jesus grant mercy to me. Speak no more to me, imp. Melahan woke up. Mordred was as he had been in real life. His breath was ragged. How much life left? Mordred looked at him but did not speak. The fine features were pale, sunken. His black hair fell from his head in clumps. Death was close, and he savored every hour he had left, even in this piteous state. The hermit had cared for Mordred at first, but the demand for holy men to work the dead of Camlin pulled him away. There was nothing more he could do for him. On the 7th day, in the evening, the doors of the chapel were flung open, and a woman rushed in. She wore a black and queenly dress, and her black hair flowed from her head like a torrent. On her head was a golden circlet, and on her hand many signet rings. She ignored the men and fell on her knees before the altar and the simple cross above. "Ah, she cried, that I be tempted! I am tempted! I cannot be in a place as pure as Avalon when I am like this." Her mouth mewed and chewed her red lips. "Ah, Lord God, that you do not take from me the desire for the powers of air and darkness. Why am I tormented with desires unholy? I am like the Magi of the Orient, who cannot go a single day without their strange herbs. Oh, I am wretched. I sense the power I once had so close, yet I want it. I want it. I hunger for your salvation, but I am torn by the unholy power I once used. I cannot remember its pain, only the joy of using and loving wickedness." And so saying, the woman wept. She mastered herself and prayed the same prayer, but she was more tormented. She wept again, then a third time, but now blood flowed where tears should have been. She ground her nails into her palms. "Aunt, trouble yourself no more," Mordred whispered over the weeping and sobbing. "Mordred, what has happened to you?" The woman crawled to him. She shook like a leaf in the gale. Now Melihan recognized her. Morgana Le Fay. "Nephew, you do not know what you have done. All Britain will suffer." "You suffer." The hand that did not hold Clarent caressed his aunt's cheek. "You are suffering. Let me help you. Take the silver chain around my neck." She did, and gasped when the black gem was revealed from under the tattered shirt he wore. "When you repented of your witchcraft, I knew that you would want it back." "No!" But she held the silver chain in her palm and rubbed the gem with her finger. "I need your help, Aunt. Please, I need your help. You see what has happened to me. Only you. That is the reward of all traitors. That Clarent has kept you alive this long is a miracle. Its charm is not infinite. I regret fighting Arthur. I regret causing so much pain. Only you can help me. Only you can give me life again." Morgana was not looking at her nephew, but only at the black gem in her hand. I could help you heal Britain." "Yes, Aunt. For good, and never for evil." The doors were flung open. The hermit cried out, "No! Do not forsake your vows! Christ has cleansed you. You only feel these desires because you ruined your body with magic. You told me so. The desire can be beaten. Think of—" But it was too late. Morgana turned from him and ripped the gem from the chain. Like a man dying of thirst, drinking deeply from the well, she swallowed the gem. Her face became beautiful again, with relief making all the ugliness of her grief disappear. Her hair fluffed and moved with a life of its own. Shadows crept from the pews and lightless places and caressed her. Her eyes widened. She smiled. She cried out in ecstasy and hugged herself. The hermit ran from the door. "Wait! I can help you. I'll get the bishop and his priests with their book and bell." Melihan had not slept without nightmares for 7 days. He wondered if this was another dream. He said, "Was it worth it?" "Yes, yes, yes!" Her voice hit pitches unnatural, even for a woman. Her words clattered over themselves, tripping at every other syllable. She grabbed his shoulder. "Now, Melihan, my great-nephew, my beloved great-nephew, yes, you are the very image of Mordred when he was your age. Did you know that? I can heal your father, but I must have something from you, yes? If I told you there was a deed you could do to save your father, would you give your body to him?" "I would give my body and life if I thought it would make him whole again. What adventure must I take? I will do it." Morgana kissed him on the forehead. Immediately, he fell into a swoon. "That done and done. My, Mordred, what an obedient son you have." When the bishop and his priests came to the chapel, they found Morgana and Sir Melihan outside, their bodies smoking. Morgana was laughing and kicking her bare feet like a tickled girl. "I forgot what magic does to people in a church." The hermit helped Sir Melihan up. "Sir Melihan, tell us that she has not done something unholy in the chapel. For the love of God, slay her before she blackens her soul once more and curses the land." But Sir Melihan lifted Clarent to strike the hermit. The bishop thrust his cross into Mordred's face. "Begone! Someone bring a sword or spear. We must slay these witches now." Mordred hissed, and the blow was fouled. He reeled in pain from the cross. The bishop called on God and the saints and Saint Michael the Archangel. "The Lord rebuke you! Leave the body you have taken!" But Mordred, quick as a snake, grabbed Morgana and threw her over his shoulder. In a moment he ran into the forest and was lost to sight. Chapter 5. Bound by Chains. Mordred crept to the walls of the abbey. He knew Guinevere was here, and he wanted her. Constantine was picking up the pieces of Logris, but Mordred could still fight him if he took Guinevere. She was hated, but she was still queen. She would side with him over Constantine. He would give her everything she surely yearned for. As Morgana had hungered for her witchcraft and shadowy power, so too must Guinevere weep for her earthly power. This repentance, this retreat to a nunnery must be a false play to preserve her life. Mordred respected that. He would make that play if he could. He leapt up as lightly as a cat hunting birds. Once over the walls, he stalked the gardens. No one saw him. He landed in the grass paths that marked the barriers between the walls and the gardens. Bees buzzed nearby, throwing the dew from their wings and seeking the fulfillment of their hive's needs. The mist made it hard for them, but the sun purified the high reaches, and soon it would purge the fullness of mist for the little workers. He could not enter the chapel itself, nor any building consecrated to holy use, but the land itself was as cursed as the rest of the earth. The blessing came from man's hands and man's prayers, not from the soil, where insect fought insect forever, and man's sweat dripped onto it in remembrance of Adam's curse. When Guinevere would come out onto the grounds, he would snatch her away. She would come to him, willingly now. Arthur was dead as far as she knew. There was no reason to make a show of penitence. Then he saw her, accompanied by 2 ladies who had followed her into the nunnery. Even at this age, in the plain clothes of a nun, she was beautiful and regal. She went to a row of statues of saints and saintly knights who had honorably perished in the search for the Holy Grail. where vines had been planted and trained to create a sort of ceiling above. Here, at a stone plinth designed for such a holy task, she knelt and prayed. Her 2 lady companions followed her lead. Mordred could have leapt for joy. He must have her. He was not yet out of the running for the throne of England. He crawled behind the bushes, staying away from the dormitory's open windows and doors. He was dressed in armor, newly forged in his style, Clarent by his side. He had dampened the sound of his armor with cloth. He feared nothing. When he was close enough to pounce, he made sure of his clothing, his hair and bearing, and stood. In a few strides he made the greenway and the statues.
"Lady Guinevere."
She turned, white as snow. "You are supposed to be dead or a demon." She fell from the plinth and backed away as he got near.
"I am alive. There is no need to be afraid. I am my own soul, as I have ever been."
"Devils do not need to possess those who do their work willingly and as bloodily as you. Leave this place. Miriam, go get the abbess. Igraine!" The women trembled in fear. Mordred had had a certain handsomeness before, but now, with his reputation and his defeat of Arthur, even an easy smile was enough to root them to the spot. Mordred had never been popular with Guinevere's ladies, but now terror held them there.
"You speak boldly, but I am here to make you queen again. You do not need to be coy."
Guinevere looked him in the eyes. Mordred got on one knee before her and held out his hand. The ladies thought he looked the very picture of chivalry and gasped.
"I do not need your deception. We were rough before. The treason of Lancelot and your betrayal had made bad blood. But Arthur is dead. Come with me, and instead of a reputation of lawless adultery, we will make you a high queen. Power and wealth will be yours. Instead of a pretender like Constantine, Arthur's line will be preserved."
"I refuse."
"Come now. You cannot be happy here, in this poor place, surrounded by peasants and always working or praying. Where is the glory? Where is the life? Why bind yourself with oaths of service when you can be served?"
"Because of the adultery, sweet as honey when we loved, I am here. I will repent. I will serve the Lord forever, whose blood has covered my wickedness. I will never seek glory or power again. The Lord is my witness. I desire nothing else but him. They say my husband is alive in Avalon. Perhaps I may beg his forgiveness in this life. If not, I will beg it in heaven." The hand outstretched grabbed her shoulder and brought her close. Guinevere did not waver. The desire was gone. Wholly, utterly gone. Mordred found no chink in her armor. "I will not go with you, traitor! Lord preserve me!" There was a crack behind the pair. Mordred leaped to his feet, pulling Clarent from his scabbard in the same instant. One of the statues moved. The crack spread from the neck where the head turned to look at them, to the body, and then down to the feet. Instead of dust, crack spread light that shone like the sun. Wherever a beam struck, the ground flowered, as if a spring rain had just ended. The statue of the knight stepped down from its plinth and faced Mordred. The rest of the stone sloughed off him. Mordred stared at Sir Galahad. The armor-clad knight drew his sword and took a fighting stance. His armor gleamed silver, with gold lines making art of every movement. Mordred had adventured with Sir Galahad and knew him to be perilous. And after finding the Holy Grail, "Sir Mordred, you are required to leave this place immediately. While you have done something abhorrent, you are allowed your life and liberty on the earth.
What if I refuse? Can't we talk about this?
The two knights kept their swords at the ready and stepped away from the women. Each step they took was in perfect synchronous motion. The first to show any weakness would be put on the back foot. Then I will slay you. Your son may have been blinded by imperfect love and piety, but I am not deceived by lies and careful double talk. It is the mercy of heaven that liars are not destroyed by their lies the second they speak them, else there would be no time to repent. Mordred did not back down.
The servants of heaven are ever weak. Before Arthur, all men were against all men, and the Saxons slaughtered who they willed. Arthur warred all the days of his life, and men like Bruce Sans Pité killed knights and their damsels, and
the wickedness of men is not an excuse for the wickedness in your own heart. All men are called to be judged before God. All men bow to God's righteousness. How many of the wicked were slain by Arthur and his knights, and their lands put to right? How many giants were brought down by your uncle, and their damsels freed from shame? How many adventures ended with God being glorified? Does Bruce yet live? He died in a ditch, while a churl paws his bloody treasures. I tell you, he is facing judgment with the rest, and him most shamefully. Mordred felt his soul burn, and the smile became a frown and then a twisted snarl of anger. He charged, Clarent high. Galahad's sword parried him. Without words they fought, nuns ran to and fro, and the abbess pulled Guinevere and her women away from the fight. Sir Galahad still had his body, and his blood mingled on the earth with Mordred's own. They fought up and down the sward, trading blows, dodging away from slashes that would have killed one or the other of them. Clarent drank deep of Sir Galahad, but Sir Galahad's sword ever pricked Mordred's flesh. Both of them fought with strength beyond the strength of men, sometimes clutching each other, other times one kicked the other away. But as time wore on, hour after hour, it was Mordred that fell back, collapsing.
I yield. Enough. I can bear it no more.
Sir Galahad flicked Clarent from his hand. So be it. I will not take your life. You will live Guinevere to her vows.
I swear it.
You will harm no Christian, unless he proffers harm to you or willingly submits to battle.
Upon my life.
You will rule no nation or land on the earth. Instead, be a merchant. You will buy and sell, and never trade on your sword for your life or livelihood.
You mean me to be a common?
Sir Galahad's sword pricked his neck. You were given an intelligent mind by God himself. Do not think I am blind to you already, scheming to get around these rules. You are allowed to defend yourself and answer true insults. It is out of respect of the nobility God made that you are allowed these privileges.
I swear.
Hatred poured out of Mordred's eyes for the Grail Knight. Very well, that is enough. My work here is done. Sir Galahad turned and climbed onto the pillar that once held the statue he had been. A thought caught Mordred. He had to know.
Wait! You could have demanded me to take orders and become a monk, or own up to my crimes, or...
Sir, at the end of days, which are coming very soon, every knee will bow, and every heart confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. You will be judged. You will submit. Since my demands were so light, I will add one more. I thought it unbecoming for a traitor knight, but perhaps it is the will of heaven. Sir Galahad transformed back into stone, but he pointed with his finger and spoke. Sir Mordred, Knight of the Round Table, you will honor every oath, magical bond, and treaty that was made by your brother knights. You will be bound by the chains of honor they forged in life and adventure. If they would have been called, you will answer, no matter how far into the future or how tenuous the claim. And with that, the transformation was complete, and the knight was again a statue. Mordred shouted defiance to the sky. The abbess ran up with a cross, with several sister nuns carrying crucifixes, incense burners, and 2 with their abbey's Bible in their hands. He felt the burn from the holy relics, and remembered what Galahad had sworn him to. In a rage, he got to his feet and fled from the women. He took up Clarent and sheathed it, feeling the anger of the sword to be beaten by a holy weapon. He leaped over the wall and then jumped onto his horse and nearly killed it, galloping away from the abbey at all speed. He cursed and spat. Far from the abbey, he alighted from his horse rather than kill it. He brushed it down and let it drink from a pool in the forest. "Excuse me, sir," an old woman addressed Sir Mordred. Mordred did not answer. "Sir, I know from your bearing and sword that you are a knight of the Round Table. Please, Sir Dodinel promised that he would rescue the maidens taken by the wicked knight Sir Pomor. He has not come back, and my granddaughters are—" The woman wept. Sir Mordred had killed Sir Dodinel with his own hands. Who was Sir Pomor? Must be a poor knight acting like a big fish with all the sharks dead. He felt the demands over him. A chain came from the invisible air around him and wrapped around his neck.
"Ah, you understand that it has been some time."
The chain choked him.
No, Sir Pomor keeps them to torment them. Please free them."
And the old woman fell at his feet and wept piteously. The chain tugged at his neck.
"I will free your daughters if they live. If they do not, I will slay Sir Pomor most cruelly."
The pressure eased.
"Oh, thank you, bless you. It is as they say, there are still knight-errants in the world. Oh, that goodness and mercy are more fiercely fought for than gold and silver. To God be the glory. I am in that home here. Bring the maidens to me, and I will see them home. Oh, God bless you."
Her kind words burned the soul of Mordred. Thank you for listening to The Red Blade by Ben Wheeler and performed by the same. A big thank you to Nathan Hood for organizing King Arthur Day. If you're interested in other offerings by Benjamin Wheeler, do check out his series, Pinkerton's Ghosts. Over 100 episodes of horror, plus some longer form novellas to enjoy as well. Do check out other superversives like John C. Wright if you love expansionist, science fiction, and wonderful, pulpy, more young adult style stories like Superluminary and Terror on Pangea. We also have Eljaji Lamplighter Wright with her wonderful Enlightenment of Rachel Griffin series, especially if you want that Harry Potter that isn't Harry Potter. We also have works by David Halquist, Ben Wheeler, Ken Dickinson, and Anthony Marchetta. Ken Dickinson is a wonderful Ken Dickinson performs wonderful audiobooks, and Anthony Marchetta has offerings like God, Robot, and The Once and Future King. Thank you for listening, and I hope you check out our work very soon in the Hightower magazine, which will have its first story by James Pyle coming out on the 14th. Thank you for listening, and good night.